a lot of people asked about book recommendations. And I think it's because I know you take in a ton of books, but you also do a great job sharing it. It's like one of the best things about following you on social media is you're really honest as well. You're like, don't waste your time reading this, or like, definitely read this. And you'll be like, this is my 6th time reading it. So a couple book recommendation questions. Okay. Just for these listeners that want it. The first is, when you think about your staff, what are the books that you're like, man, I want all of the people I'm working with, they've got to read these books?
Oh man. Strengthening the Soul of Your Leadership by Ruth Haley Barton is one of the best leadership books I know. It's one that our staff comes back to on a regular basis. All the Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, Emotionally Healthy Church. Actually, I like the original the most, Emotionally Healthy Church. Most people now read Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, which is great. But for church leaders, I still think the OG is the best. Emotionally Healthy Church is a must read. Then there's the Emotionally Healthy Leader. So, I mean, all that stuff. I mean, Scazzero's work is just gold. Our staff goes around that so much. Willard's stuff in particular for church leaders. So the problem with Willard is a couple of his books that are the most helpful are the ones that are just onerous to read, right? So the Willard book that not a lot of people read that has had the greatest impact on our church and staff is The Spirit of the Disciplines by Willard, it's not an easy read. It's slow, it's boring. I had to read it. I don't think I even started to understand it till the end of my second read through. I didn't really get it the first time. And then the second time I started getting it, and now it's like basically changed our entire model of church. And then an easier entry point to Willard would be The Great Omission is the easiest way to get into his thing. Cause it's, Great Omission isn't actually a full book. It's 50 pages and you can read the 50 pages and basically get the synopsis of his view of formation and leadership. And then the rest of it's just like essays that got turned into chapters, and you can read them, you can not read them, you can pick and choose. They're repetitive. They don't follow a linear path. So you can kind of just read the 50 pages, that's kind of Willard's basic take on discipleship, and then Renovation of the Heart by Willard is really good. Then, what else? There's one that's a really great introduction called The Relational Soul. That's an introduction to attachment theory, which I've discovered, and the role of small t trauma that in my work as a pastor, I'm realizing should be one of the first things that we train in as pastors. And it's one of the last things we find out about. It's a really short, easy read by 2 Christian psychologists, Plass and Cofield, that helps give you a basic, you have to go far. If you want to get into it, you have to go read more. That gives you a basic way of navigating small t trauma or big T trauma and attachment stuff. That is, I think, just crucial for pastoral work.
Okay, a couple more book recommendation questions. These legitimately came in, so I just love it. The other one was,
you're chuckling at me right now.
I'm just chuckling that this is what people like. Were like, I want to hear John Mark and all the stuff about rest and slow down spirituality and all the classics.
There's this thing is like a biblio doctor or whatever, like who his job is like to make book recommendations. Like, I think you're ready for this one now. I'm like, how do I get that job? Why am I a pastor? I need a biblio doctor. I want that job so bad.
It's like a dietitian for literature consumption.
Literature, please, Jesus.
Okay, the next one is a new Christian, someone just come to faith. What is the book or two you want to put in their hands early on?
I don't know. In all honesty, I'm actually working on that book right now because I haven't been able to find one that I feel great about recommending. So I'm actually working on one right now in that vein. So to start, maybe the book that played a huge role, I'm not sure if this is the right recommendation or not, but early in my formation, especially early in my journey, was The Pursuit of God by A.W. Tozer, which is a short read. And it's not like how to follow Jesus. It's about like the heart posture of always wanting, desiring, and pursuing God. I think that just has framed my entire spiritual journey. That one's huge. Honestly, I just read that book by our man, Daryl Johnson, Experiencing the Trinity. I keep thinking of that.
Mm-hmm.
You can read it in one
Really?
sitting. It's like 90 pages long. And it's just about like, how do you participate in the inner life of the Trinity of love? Like that, that's it,
Mm-hmm.
man. I think like I'm working on and I think we had chatted about maybe collaborating on this, which I really want to do, but I'm working on like a post-alpha kind of for new follower of Jesus, like basic intro kind of discipleship formation. This is how you get going following Jesus course that we want to run as part of our Practicing the Way stuff at the church. It'll be a while before it's out, but I'm working on it now. And the first 3 weeks are all on Trinitarian theology. Like it ends with practices and spiritual disciplines that the course will, but it just starts with like the idea that what you think about God is the most important thing about you, and you become like your vision of God, or for better or worse. So we're just like going through Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Trinitarian community of love, Trinitarian community of joy, Trinitarian community of peace, you know what I mean? Self-giving, like all generativity, like all of that. Like, man, what if we could just capture young believers' minds before we get, I mean, I'm super passionate about, here's the disciplines and here's the ethics of the kingdom and the Sermon on the Mount. What if we could capture people's minds with the inner nature and life of God himself and let people begin through practices and prayer and contemplative stuff to experience and enter into that inner life of the Trinity? That seems like that would be pretty amazing.
I love that. Okay, last
Another
book.
good one for a new believer would be Life Without Lack, which was the last. It was published posthumously. It says it's by Dallas Willard, but he didn't actually write it. It was based on transcripts or recordings of a Sunday school class that he gave, so it's way easier to read than his other stuff. And at the end, it's all in Psalm 23. And at the end, he has this killer chapter that I plan to rip off one day. It's called something like Spend the Day with Jesus. And it walks you through from when you go to bed at night to sundown on the following day, how you practice the presence of God. And that's how I'm going to end my little book that I'm working on for a new believer. And in the meantime, his is way better.
Well, that's a perfect transition, because the other book question was, what books are in your heart or mind to write? What are the books that are in you that you're hoping in your lifetime you're going to be able to write?
Oh, well, my next book's already written. It'll come out in a bit, and it's on a bunch of controversial stuff. But the real body of work that is in my heart, my life, and I want to kind of spend the next 10 or 15 years working on is I want to do like a anthology, like a series that's like probably 5 to 7 books long, and then with another 10 like shorter self-published books that go with it, all on spiritual formation. So the first one will be this book on basically what does it mean to be an apprentice or a follower of Jesus, that you'd like hand to somebody post-alpha or brand new to Jesus, or been around the church for a long time, but like what's the difference between being a Christian and following the way of Jesus. And then I want to write like a book on abiding, like kind of practicing the presence of God, be with Jesus. And I want to write a book on become like Jesus. That'll be like the thickest one I probably will ever write, all on formation, psychology, how do we change, dealing with our past, inner healing, the role of trauma, attachment theory, discovering our unique identity, all of that stuff. And then I want to write something on kind of do what Jesus would do. And then I want to write thing on kind of naming your season of life and stage of apprenticeship and dark night of the soul. And then I want to write I want to create like practices that would include each like a short little book on each of the major practices. So like fasting and silence and solitude and Sabbath and prayer, just like little easy to read, probably self-published books where you could, along with teaching and stuff, where you're like, oh, I've never done fasting before. Let me grab my church or a small group or my spouse or my best buddy, and let's go through this thing over the next couple of weeks and start practicing fasting or whatever, you know? So I think that's,
I love it.
Beyond that, I mean, I have ideas, but I don't know. That's the next 10 or 15 years, I think, is that
thanks for sharing that.
I want to bring formation into local churches and post-Christian contexts.